Good morning, Sri Lanka. What a way to start the early AM than looking into this pretty face. I'm your host, Jason. And of course, we have Amaya in the studio as well.
Hi,
enlightening
everybody.
us with her awesome presence,
Of
as
course,
usual.
I'm awesome.
Well, today, guess who's on the show today? We have someone really interesting.
We do. And Jason, you want to tell us something about her and what she does?
Alright, so she's based in DC. She's actually flown down to Sri Lanka and she's enlightening us by being here on Good Morning Sri Lanka. She's actually the curator at the Smithsonian Institution's National Numismatic Collection. And she's also the author of the book. She wrote a book about, you know, the coin designer George C. Morgan. Well, she wrote about him as well. And she's also opening an exhibition, a permanent exhibition, at the National Museum of American History.
Wow, so that's a lot of expertise behind this lady,
Pretty
isn't
much.
it? Yeah.
So let's welcome Karen Lee.
Good
morning.
Welcome to the show.
How's your morning been so far?
My morning is awesome. I'm really happy to be here with you.
And welcome to Sri Lanka as well.
Thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed your visit so far.
I have.
And we'll speak more about what you came down here to do. But tell us, now, you are someone who has a master's in museum studies. So tell us about how you got interested in this field and where you started off from.
Well, I got interested in museums totally by accident. I had been a high school biology teacher, but I didn't really love that job, and I fell into museums accidentally, and that's just stuck with me. I do a lot of exhibition planning, and right now I'm working with the numismatic collection, and that's coins and money. So I'm planning exhibits and doing research and helping to take care of the National Numismatic Collection.
Of course. And so this is the work that you're interested in, and you're down here in Sri Lanka to actually enrich the culture of museums that we have in Sri Lanka, isn't it?
I was brought here by the United States Embassy, and I have worked with a variety of museums, and we've had workshops talking about what museums should mean in the 21st century, how to keep these establishments relevant to the public, and how to create exhibitions that are more meaningful and more engaging to people who come to museums to visit them.
Of course.
So far, like, have you seen any notable historical value in Sri Lankan coins?
Actually, I had a wonderful visit to the collection today just for the very first time, and yes, I've learned a lot of ancient history. I mean, that's what coins were. Coins were the first communication technology. They were the first time in the history of humankind that people could put an image and a motto on money. And this metal traveled around our countries and traveled around empires and traveled around kingdoms, and they showed people who was in charge and what the nations stood for. So yes, I've learned a lot of interesting Sri Lankan history based on the images on the money.
That is true, and it's always fascinating when you find a Chinese coin in South America or things like that, how they've crossed over. You can really gauge by studying numismatics, can't you? And also just tell us, what's your work like in the Smithsonian? Now this is a huge institute. I think there's 20 plus museums that are associated with the Smithsonian and the exhibits that are going on there. So tell us about the work you do, and specifically your permanent exhibit that you're going to open up.
So I work at the National Museum of American History, and we have about 1.5 million objects in our collection, so it is truly a magnificent collection of ancient and world money and American coinage from the gold rush and amazing times in American history. And yeah, last year I raised $1.5 million with the help of my colleagues, to be able to create a permanent home for the numismatic collection. And we're hoping to experiment with some techniques to attract new audiences to this exhibit, because typically in the United States men visit coin exhibits, and I'm particularly interested in how girls and women can learn history from coins. And so we're going to experiment in this exhibit with techniques to attract women, and one of those is that Lady Liberty on American coinage is always this allegorical, almost mythologic figure. We don't have that many real women who have ever appeared on coins. And so I want to sort of deconstruct Lady Liberty and her changing design and her changing style on coinage, and I hope to be able to engage women and get them a little more interested in the artistry on our coins.
Of course, that's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. Getting into your book about George D. Morgan, what inspired you to write a book about him?
Wow. Well, I wasn't particularly interested in him as an American coin engraver. He was the 8th engraver for the United States Mint, and everybody in the United States knew about him as this older man who had come from Britain and designed coins in the United States from 1876 until about 1925 when he died. But we have one object in the collection, which was his sketchbook, and I discovered that he used this sketchbook when he was a student in Birmingham, and so he was in his teens and in his 20s, and he was sketching in this book, and then he brought the book with him literally on the SS Illinois when he came to the United States in 1876, and the book eventually ended up in our collection. So I was able to learn a lot about him as a young man and as an artist and as a designer of metals before he ever came to the United States, and it just was amazing to me what you could learn about one person's life from a very small tattered sketchbook that we happen to have in the collection that no one had noticed in probably the 100 years that it had lived in the collection. And so I just stumbled upon it and I was like, what's this? It's in our collection, it's really interesting. And then I figured out that it was his sketchbook, and it has revealed a lot about his life before he came to the United States, and I think that that's really important for Americans to sort of be able to grasp onto.
In case you're wondering what the name of the book is, it's called The Private Sketchbook of George T. Morgan. That's so going to be my weekend read. It really is.
So that's the only resource you used? It was just his sketchbook, and did you have any other resources to find out about his life? Because someone who passed away in 1925, and you're writing this book about him now, you need a lot of information.
Absolutely. I worked with the Royal Mint in England. I actually found his family members. The internet is awesome. I know you know that. And the internet is awesome. And so yes, I was able to find his family members, many of whom are still in Philadelphia. They brought me family photographs and treasures and stories about him. So yeah, we really dug into the research and into the archives, mostly in England, to find letters and correspondence that helped me understand how did he ever land this gig and why did he come to the United States to begin with.
Right, so you pretty much got an in-depth look at what who he really was by visiting his family. Alright, now getting into your work before the Smithsonian, you worked in a couple of museums before that.
Yeah, I did. I've always been interested in how people learn in museums, and a really great place to learn about learning is children's museums. And so I worked for a while in a children's museum, and before that in a science center. And there, unlike Smithsonian museums, there's so much interactivity, and the exhibits are all about learning by doing. And so that really shaped my ideas about working in a more classic museum, because I believe that people like to be engaged in activity, and that most people, even in classical museums, learn by doing. And so I've tried to bring some of those ideas into the Smithsonian, because I think that it just helps people get more connected with the content that we're trying to share.
Of course. And you've actually been on a very exciting tour in Europe, where you were showcasing this particular coin that was minted some time back and it's not in circulation anymore. And tell us about this tour and what it was all about and the response that you had, because you had 3 bodyguards going around with that coin, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I traveled with a rock star from the numismatic collection. She was a 1933 $20 gold coin, and I know it's just one coin, but
you can go on, but I think the coin is going to come on screen as well.
Ah, so okay. Oh, there she is. So look at that design. One of the things that's fabulous about this coin is that design was created by a sculptor named Augustus St. Gaudens. And the United States wanted to create really beautiful, provocative coinage. Our designs hadn't changed in more than 50 years, and the president said, we've got to do something to get people looking at our coinage, and that gorgeous design came as a result. But the reason that the coin is a rock star isn't because of the design or that it's made from gold, but that it was created during the Great Depression in the United States in 1933. And the president decided that we were going to go off the gold standard. We made 500,000 of these coins, and they were supposed to go right back into the melting pot. They were never supposed to escape from the mint. They weren't supposed to circulate in 1933. And she was one of just a handful of coins that did escape from the mint, and she survived the Great Meltdown, and now she's an icon that tells this story about surviving the Great Depression in the United States.
Wait, so how much do you think that coin is worth today?
We're not supposed to talk about the financial value. We care a lot about the historic value, but I can say that one sold for more than $12 million a few years ago, so they're quite pricey.
That's a lot of money spent on that coin. So this is the only one in existence now, or there are a few more that escaped?
No, there are about 13 actually. There were 3 originally, and then 10 more have sort of surfaced over the years.
Oh. So you've been touring Europe and you've been showcasing this, and what has the response been like?
The response was phenomenal. We went on a 7-country European tour, and I actually was a little bit of a doubting Thomas, because I wondered, why would people outside the United States care about one single coin that's telling a very small part of American history? But as we traveled to places like Prague and the Czech Republic, and people were lining the museum waiting for their turn to come in and take a look at the coin, I went outside with a translator and I was talking to people like, why are you in this line waiting in the rain and it's freezing cold? Why do you want to see this American coin? And people really humbled me. They said, because it's history and it's our one chance in our lifetime to see something special. And that was very much the response as we traveled around the 7 countries that we visited with the coin. And I really thought, wow, it's wonderful to take an object and to share it with a new audience and to get this feedback about the interest from people that you just weren't sure would be interested in it. So it was a very exciting chance to meet people and to talk about learning history from coins, and so hopefully we'll do more work like that in the future.
Great. Tell me about your permanent exhibition that you'll be opening up soon in 2015.
I'm so excited about this. Coin collecting is the most popular hobby in the United States, and so we have a very interested audience in visiting coins and seeing some of the special coins in our collection. But with this exhibit we really hope to do some unusual interpretation. For example, one of the themes that we would like to explore is money's secret. Now if you think about it, in the thousands of years since we invented coinage, it still does the same job, even though we've moved from gold coins and silver coins that were worth their weight in that metal and had intrinsic value to representational currency like paper money. It's not worth anything, but if it says $100, it's worth $100. And now we've even moved into virtual currency, which removes us even further from the real stuff. Most people don't even see money anymore. So there's a lot of interesting ground to cover in talking about what money means to people, the job that it has done historically since ancient times until now, and how it's changed over time. So we're very excited about planning this exhibit, and as I have said, I'm particularly interested in attracting women and girls and trying to engage new audiences in a subject that has typically really been more popular with men.
Wow, so that's important work, isn't it? But tell us about what you're doing here in Sri Lanka. Now you've been going around, you've been visiting some of the museums, and you've been conducting some workshops on what is your specialty, which is exhibit planning. So tell us about how that's going and what you've been doing so far.
We've been talking a lot in these workshops about how to keep museums relevant in the 21st century.